This episode of Scrolling to Death is sponsored by Bark Technologies. Bark offers parents advanced content monitoring for all of your child's devices. Bark is literally helping to save lives and has alerted parents to millions of life-threatening situations like self-harm and severe bullying. More on Bark in the episode notes. Hi, Titania.
Hi, Nicki.
How are you?
I am great because I'm talking to you.
I feel like that's how we start it every time.
Mhm.
We were just together in person. Let's see, today is Monday. We were together, Thursday night last week?
I think so.
I think so. Do you know what day it is?
I mean,
No.
depends on the hour. But yes, no, you're right. We were together on Thursday.
Mhm.
We heard and saw Jonathan Haidt. I'm moving off camera for 1 second because
Yay.
finally got my copy.
Mhm.
And it's like, I feel like I have stumbled upon the mothership, right?
I
Like
know.
this book, the impact it has had.
So Anxious Generation, and explain what you told me about why you hadn't read it yet on purpose.
Right. Okay. So I, while not the Jonathan Haidt level of things, also set out to write a book called Parental Control. It's coming out very soon. You can pre-order it now. But I did not want to read his book and have any part of his book influence my book. I really wanted it to be separate. Also because I quote some of his more well-known quotes, like
Mhm.
underprotected in the digital world and overprotected in the real, like
Yeah.
there's some things that I'm like, definitely want that in there. But I have such a great deal of respect for what he has done. And I just didn't want any part of it to seem like I'm
Mhm.
um, taking from his moment. You know what am I
Yeah.
trying to say, Nicki?
Well, when I go out and do presentations, and after watching his, I was like, that's what everyone needs to hear. Like I,
Right.
but I can't just copy his presentation. So I came out of seeing him being like, what are my unique thoughts after hearing his, especially the research, because him and his team go so deep
Yeah.
into the research and inform recommendations based off of that around technology use. And so,
Yeah.
I'm going to include a link to pre-order parental control in the episode notes. What's the date that comes out again?
March 11th, 2025.
March 10th is when this episode drops. So tomorrow, everyone can it'll be starting to be shipped. Is that how it goes?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I'm
Okay.
going camera again because boom, let's talk about my cover. Hello.
Yay, I love it. I know I'd already seen it, but so good. Okay, so tomorrow, that will be starting to be shipped. I already pre-ordered mine, so I'll get mine soon. I wonder how quickly they ship, but I'm so excited about
Thank
that. And let's talk a little bit more about. So we saw John Haidt speak.
you.
It was like an hour and a half long lecture, followed by Q&A. So meaty, and there's so many things he talked about. And what are one or two things that really stood out to you after hearing him in person?
The element of building resilience in children by letting them encounter risk uh, is something that I've had to work very hard on as a mom, who wanted to protect my child from everything.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Knowing the correct amount of risk to let your child encounter that could result in, broken bones, etc. It's hard. It's very hard. And that was another thing that stood out was just how boys are not breaking bones anymore, which like
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
society, you wouldn't think like we want boys to be breaking bones,
Yeah.
but if you hear his data and the reasoning, you're like, oh gosh, it might. Yeah, it's so he
So
gave me
15 boys are the least likely to break bones.
right, right, and he was showcasing like when you think of innovative young adults, who comes to top of mind, right? It's always Greta and blah 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 and blah blah blah. You're not
Yeah.
hearing about any young men.
Mhm.
And as the mom of a 16-year-old boy,
Mm. That
I'm like,
resonated.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. So that hit home for me. Everything else, I knew about because of our work at Bark. And
Yeah.
it was really amazing to hear how he said what he said. And honestly, it aligned a lot with when I'm out doing my talks, what I say, how I say it, what you need to pay attention to.
Mhm.
And what I would have loved, Jonathan Haidt's team, if you're listening, can we get some more Q&A time?
Oh
Like,
my God. Every time
please.
anyone speaks, we should do half presentation and then half Q&A at least.
Yeah. And, like, we can have, like, an interrupter there when people are like, "Hi, I just wanna say thank you." It's like, "No, no, no. Get to
I
your
know. I was
question.
like, yeah,
Get
yeah,
to your
I know.
question."
I was like elbowing you, being like, hey, we don't need to hear how much you love him. We know. We all do. But uh, yeah.
His passion that came out, especially
Mhm.
around things like the American Academy of Pediatrics not having, a statement like they
Yeah.
should, I really wanna double click on that.
So the AAP, that got me as well because I started reading a new book by Richard Freed called it is called Better Than Real Life, and it just came out, and I'm going to be interviewing him soon, and it is so good, highly recommend. And he has a whole chapter about national organizations that are sponsored and funded by big tech that should not be, and he goes into great detail on the AAP. So I flipped forward to that chapter last night, and I was reading about that. What we can see is the AAP making very light recommendations, and the AAP, they just announced a webinar. So it's called Beyond the Likes, Social Media, Mental Health, and You. And I'm looking at the sessions. And so first of all, there's a virtual tour of the Smithsonian exhibit, the cell phone exhibit. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
So there's a cell phone exhibit sponsored by T-Mobile at the Smithsonian.
Okay.
And it is like the history of the cell phone, which is very interesting, but there is literally not a thing about safety on smartphones, about harm of smartphones and screen time in the entire exhibit on a full Smithsonian exhibit of cell phones. And so a huge miss. And I've been there twice now because I'm just so shocked about this. And so this session sponsored by the AAP features a virtual tour of that exhibit. And then you're going to learn from the platforms how to curate your social media feeds.
Oh
Not
my
possible.
gosh.
Yeah,
What?
right. Okay. I know. Like, that's even possible. Not. It's not possible. No. You're gonna learn how to advocate for healthy social media use,
Mhm.
which healthy social media use doesn't exist for teenagers, and then you're gonna learn how to safely engage with AI. Those
Okay.
are okay. So that's
Uh,
what the AAP is pushing out, for education, and this session is for kids 14 to 24. Um,
I uh Okay.
all over.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay.
I sent that over to John Haidt's team, because I was like, "By the way, you are right. The AAP is not on the right side of this issue." And so that's very concerning, and that also stood out to me, obviously. I've been, like, tracking it back as the last few days.
I would love a link just to go and
Mhm.
stare. That will be my version of doom scrolling of just like, "What how is this real?"
I know. I know.
Yeah, because you heard him, like, the night
Mhm.
before.
Yeah. And we heard him speak together to a more general audience. So there was a lot more into the norms and not a lot of talk about his new norm, which I don't know if
Mhm.
he's even officially announced yet. I might be breaking the news, but there's four norms in the book.
Mhm.
But the fifth norm that he starting to introduce is around ed tech, reducing ed tech. And that's what really stood out to me. But he went into way more detail on that during a talk the night before, which was to California superintendents, school superintendents across the state of California. So there's thousands of people in there, and he dug deep into ed tech. And I just want to touch on what his policy recommendations were based off of his initial research. And they're doing more and more research there about how school tech is affecting kids. And these are in line with what I've been talking about. So I started a new organization called Tech Safe Learning Coalition. So techsafelearning.org, and it's parent-facing resources, how to ask your school for some of these things that he's recommending. So John Haidt, after his research, is recommending that we delay tech at school. So we work the hardest to get screens out of the youngest grades. He says
Yes.
computers in a dedicated computer room are fine, and even said computer for the teacher is fine, but we should have no one-to-one devices. And I've heard him say all the way up through middle school. He's not making any strong statements on high school use quite yet because of the research isn't there. But how insane would that be? What a big difference to just remove devices one to one all the way through eighth grade.
Yeah, I mean, kids would actually learn instead
Yeah.
of game and
Mhm.
encounter pornography, at least on school issue devices, like, it would don't see a downside.
Yeah.
So
So, in a couple things that he focused on was both the distractions, and the gamification. And so he gives example about in his college course or his college lecture halls at NYU Stern School of Business. He started out trying to make a deal with the students, like, okay, prompts, put like stand up, put your hand up, and promise that you will never use your device during class for anything other than on this lecture. And he tried that for years, I think. And the TA would sit at the back of the classroom and see them all doing everything but what they needed to do for class.
yes.
So he cut the device use altogether because he's like, these college students who are paying so much money to be at this grad school, or this is Stern School of Business. Is that a undergrad? I don't know.
I don't
Whatever,
know.
this college. And they can't even stay focused. How do we expect an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to stay focused on these devices that do have access to all different things?
And this isn't hard to test, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
teach a kid a lesson on a digital device and then paper-based device and measure their recall.
Yeah.
Who's
There's
doing
tons of research at
Yeah.
techsavelearning.org that all the digital danger drop downs. We talk about substandard education, and there's a ton of research there where it shows that kids retain so much more from paper. So there's the distraction piece, and then there's also something else that stood out to me was the gamification. So
Mhm.
John says if you gamify like a quarter of the kids' school day with ed tech games, like really, they're all like educational games,
Yeah.
which isn't even a term, educational games. They're just games. Um, then what we're seeing is that everything else they do in their real life becomes more boring to them. And so you may see them be more engaged. Yes, they're more engaged, but are they actually learning more? The research is showing no. They are just paying attention, or they're just excited by the gamification of it, but they're not actually learning. And when you give them something paper based after that, it's so boring and dull to them that they can't retain it. So huge,
Yeah,
that's
don't
like ding, ding, ding to me.
don't give your kid ice cream and then expect them to eat the broccoli.
Yeah, right. So I love that he's talking about this. I love that parents are starting to get really passionate about and realize that we have some say in what our kids are accessing at
Yeah.
school, right?
Yes.
Those are the things I think that stood out to right both of us. We obviously recommend people go read Anxious Generation for his 4 new norms, but I'm loving to see what's happening next now that we're building off of that when it comes to screens at school. And I came across, so transitioning over, because you guys at BARC came out with your annual report.
Yep.
And it's been on my list to review, and I finally got to, and I was shocked at some of these numbers. You processed almost 8 billion activities on families' BARC accounts across text, email, YouTube, and 30 different apps, or over 30 different apps and social media platforms. So I wanted to let you tell parents what are some stats that surprised you and that we should be thinking about.
Sure.
And these are stats. So basically, what you guys, part of your guys' technology alerts parents when there's something concerning that the kids come across on the device. And so then you're able to bucket them out and assess how much of each type of harm a kid engaged with or was pushed to them. And
100%.
so, yeah, okay.
Overall, what was not only surprising but heartbreaking was that year over year, most every alert type that we're reporting on got worse year over year.
Hmm.
That means there were more children experiencing suicidal ideation and self harm, and sexual content, and bullying, and disordered eating related content, and predators and violence online. More.
Mm,
So, heartbreaking.
yeah. Does that mean more? The percentages are higher. Like, it's not because you're assessing more devices than ever, but it's the percentages are higher,
It's the
right?
percentage. I'm glad you
Right.
clarified that. Yes, as a
Yeah.
company, we grew dramatically year over year. So there's obviously going to be more children encountering these things.
Yeah.
But from a percentage basis, the rate at which our user base encountered these problematic issues increased.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
that's what's heartbreaking.
Is there something that's standing out regarding a harm that parents need to be specifically talking to their kids about and warning them about?
Yes, I would say of the 9 that we feature on the report, and we alert parents to way more than just 9 types of problems online. But of the 9, I want to talk about 4 of them. The first one being self-harm and suicide. So 37% of tweens and 60% of teens were involved in a self-harm or suicidal situation. Those numbers are way too high.
Mm. Yeah.
From a sexual content standpoint, 63% of tweens and 77% of teens encountered nudity or content of a sexual nature. But we could have a whole slew of episodes about that, right? Of
Mhm.
age-appropriate sexual curiosity versus the harm that happens to children because of sexual content they encounter online.
Yeah. To their like sexual templates. They're like relationships as they get older, all these things, making them confused about what's normal and not normal when it comes to those topics.
Yeah, we want them to be able to have healthy,
Yes.
consensual relationships when they're old enough and in
Right.
the right context. And
Hmm.
what they see or become addicted to in 3rd grade should not be impacting that, and it is.
Yeah.
The third thing is bullying. I mean, goodness gracious, 71% of tweens, 77% of teens experienced bullying, either as the bully, the victim, or the witness.
Mm.
Parents don't realize when they let their kids hop on a group chat before they've even given them a device, they're encountering some really horrible things that kids, good kids, are saying to each other. Because good
Yeah.
kids make bad choices.
Yeah.
The bullying is impacting their mental and physical health,
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, disordered eating, self-harm, and suicide. It's a
Yeah.
interconnected web. It's not a siloed.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then finally, predators. People do not think uh, that their child is going to encounter an online predator. They just don't until it happens. And
Hmm.
everybody needs to know that they are online. They are extremely online, and they're on the places where your kids are spending time, like Roblox, like Snapchat, etc.
On purpose because they know your kids are there.
Yeah.
I think parents, I mean, we hope that these companies that offer products for children would make them safe for children and not allow predators to interact with kids. But unfortunately, that's just not true. Isn't that crazy? Like that realization, which happened very quickly for me in this work, it's still hard to process sometimes.
It's very hard. I mean, at Bark in, I think it was 2019, we went undercover as an 11-year-old on Instagram, and within moments had grown men in our direct messages looking to chat with us, live video call with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the spring of 2024,
Mm-hmm.
we we showcased how quickly this could happen to an investigative team at ABC. And while some things had gotten better with regards to Instagram, it was still possible. It was still happening. There was a grown man in Europe talking with who he thought was a child. And just to see that happening 5 years later,
Mm-hmm.
heartbreaking.
It was Facebook whistleblower Arturo Behar. What he shares is that 13% of Instagram users, 13 to 15, have received unwanted sexual advances on the platform within the last 7 days. So these companies just they need to do a better job. They're not going to. We have to regulate them and sue them out of this. But the fact that they allow unwanted sexual advances, and a lot of that means like sending dick pics to
100%.
13-year-old girls. Like that's so horrific. I don't even know how I would deal with that if my daughter came to me with that. And I know that's what parents are dealing with in their homes every day, just giving access to something to chat with their friends. And that's all we think that it is.
So when I was on on the West Coast last week, I had the opportunity to meet up with Rich DeMiro of Rich on Tech at KTLA,
Mm.
and I'm following with stories because I'm just a huge fan. And he just reported today that Apple's looking to hire about 22,000 people, and he linked to the Apple jobs page. And I was looking through it just to see, are they going to prioritize child safety? I looked in marketing, I looked in their security, I looked in their corporate comms, I looked
Yeah.
at almost everywhere I think that I could, and I didn't see a single thing about making Apple products safer for kids
Hmm.
or working to educate parents about how Apple tools could be used to better keep kids safe, nor did I see anything about, squashing the bugs in screen time. So,
I mean,
yeah.
Meta just laid off, I think, almost 4,000 employees to move more of their investment into AI.
Mm.
And I don't know specifically if those were I mean, AI, maybe they could skew it and say that they're going to use AI for child safety, but I doubt it. But TikTok was also in the news the last few days too for cutting jobs globally in the trust and safety arena. And so Wha that with the bad PR around these companies right now, you'd think that they would be investing more, or at least in their PR campaigns into child safety, not cutting those jobs, but I think they're all in the race for winning the AI war, that they all need to be putting as much investment there as they can.
I did see plenty of jobs posted for, public relations crap. I wonder why.
I know. They're just PR machines. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a large percentage of their staff have to be PR marketing people because they have to hide all of this bad stuff and
Yeah.
they have to drown it out. Like you'll see when there's a new report that comes out that's really damning for one of these companies, then it'll start to get drowned out quickly by the PR articles that they put out and they place in all the major media outlets. And so
Mhm.
it's really interesting to watch once you're paying attention.
Mm. It's like that
Ah,
meme of the guy with all the strings and the dots and you know what I mean?
yeah. That
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think yes.
It's where we are.
Maybe we're probably on that on that map with the strings. When she says something, put out an article that negates it.
Well, good.
Uh,
You're paying attention.
yeah. I mean, generally, I think that awareness. So, because you guys put out these numbers, it's so helpful to parents. And I think that there is a general awareness, increased awareness in parents about the social media harms. Now, I think parents are playing catch up regarding like AI chatbots and some of these emerging things. But I do think and hope that parents are becoming more aware and educated on these. On the social media side, do you feel that way?
I do. Um,
Popping in here to tell you about the best phone for kids, and that is the Bark phone. If you don't want your kids signing up for social media, an iPhone is not going to do it. They will find their way around the parental controls. The Bark phone starter plan comes with talk and text only. If and when you're ready to start integrating social media access or more apps, there are advanced plans available that offer social media but not without your approval. Plus, the Bark phone has advanced content monitoring, which will send you alerts of potential dangers. If your child already has an iPhone or an Android and you don't want to switch it up, please layer on Bark parental controls as a baseline. You can set screen time rules, block certain websites and apps, get alerts, and a ton more helpful options for parents. Also, check out the brand new Bark Watch.
they're
That,
becoming more aware, but they're still struggling with what now?
yeah.
What do I do? They don't feel confident that they can actually truly protect their child.
Mhm.
They feel like they're stuck between two very non-optimal choices, which is no access, nothing at all. You're in a bubble, right? Or I'm just going to let you have everything and hope for the best because everybody else does, and I don't want you to be left out. And I'm here to tell you there is actually a middle ground of
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. The, a safe phone that alerts you when they see this crap or do this stuff, because some of our kids might be bullying too. So, how does Bark's solution help keep our kids safe from these threats?
Wow. Thank you for asking that. As a company that does create safer tech products for kids, our goal is not to get more tech into more children's hands. They have plenty of it, right? They
Mhm.
don't need any more screen time.
Yeah.
But our point is to, if and when it's time for them to have access to screens, the parents can actually limit and filter and monitor that screen
Mhm.
time effectively.
Yeah.
Um, if and when it's time for your child to need to be able to communicate with trusted family, 911, etc., on the go, maybe they're riding a bike away from home to build resilience, like Jonathan Haidt suggests. If
Mhm.
you'd like to be able to track their location and if they need to be able to communicate safely, they can do that with the Bark Watch or the Bark phone. So it's tech is a tool. Tech is neither bad nor good. But we as a society have defaulted to giving our children too much unsafe tech too soon. So
Yeah.
if we are going to give them tech, let's make sure it is safer tech that is optimal for child safety and a parent's ability to actually manage it.
Yeah. And that's just it. When a dad reached out to me yesterday and was like, "What's a good device for I just want something simple so my kid, I want to let them go out and do more things, but I do want them to get a hold of me in case of an emergency." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Bark Watch." Like
Thank you.
easy. It's so simple. It only allows them to do a couple of things and it keeps them safe from all of those threats. And if they do happen to get a message from somebody that is a trusted contact that's, saying something mean to them, like, you will get an alert about that and be able to talk to them and step in. But they can also get a hold of you in case of that emergency happening. So we have options these days, and parents need to use them 100% of the time. Like, there's no scenario where giving your kid an iPhone is the better option these days. And that is said just not in a promotional way, like just purely what is safer for the kid.
Totally. I work for Bark and I'm out on the speaking circuit as well saying, please pick anything but an iPhone. It doesn't have to be the Bark phone.
Mhm.
There's plenty of options out there. Just don't
Yeah.
go with iPhone.
Yeah. And even with even parents have hard times with their iPhones, and I'm trying, a healthier phone for adults, and it's a struggle, but I think if I would have it's a shift, and I think it's interesting because giving kids a safer phone that has built-in safeguards and limits to what they can do eases them into safer use as an adult. I do believe. Like, I think
Yes,
giving them access to
mindful.
everything giving them access to everything, how are they ever going to be healthy with it and take steps back? It's just going to be so ingrained. Because even me now, like knowingly and actively trying to take some steps back from my tech use is really hard. So if kids are ingrained into that from when they're 11 or 12 years old, like we're not setting them up for success, giving them access to everything.
I'm so proud of you for, in the midst of all that you are managing,
Mm.
um, making that switch to the Wise phone to see how that's working for you. It was wild to watch you at
I know.
dinner.
I know.
Ooh,
It's a
I
lot.
don't do that, and,
Yeah.
I'm excited to learn from you, and
Yeah.
maybe I can do that, right? Maybe I can have a different kind of phone because I do have an iPhone. I am out there very publicly and passionately
Yeah.
saying not for kids, but
Mhm.
for me, for an adult that does what I do, the iPhone has been a wonderful tool for me. So
Yeah.
it's
And I mean, to give Apple credit, like, they've done a great job making it really hard for Apple devices to integrate with other devices. And so there's a lot of struggle that comes with using a non-Apple device when most of the other people have Apple devices. And the calendars and the messages just don't work as well, and sometimes don't come through at all or come through multiple times. It's just very odd. And I think it's on purpose so that no one ever ditches their brand.
well, yeah,
Of
Avi.
course. I know, but it's hard. It's really hard to be. So I think if kids come into it being like, there's lots of options when it comes to devices. We don't have to default to this one brand and monopolize that whole situation. Then as they enter adulthood, they will naturally feel like there are options. It's not just a default.
Yeah. It was funny, I was at a smartphone alternative device fair near Rye, New York,
Oh,
which,
wow.
by the way, doing more and more of those because I think it's so important for parents to be able to come out and see all the options, right? I was at an alternative device fair, and one of the exhibitors there, along with Bark, was the Light phone.
Mhm.
And I was talking to the dude, and, I was like, "I love this. This is beautiful and simple and really cool. I couldn't do this given what I
Mhm.
work on," and he was like, "Maybe you could." He was like, "We all work for this
Mhm.
company. We've gotta do
Yeah.
social media, we've gotta do email, and we
Yeah.
use our light phones," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Hmm,
I know.
hmm, we'll see."
There's workarounds,
Yeah,
but I was thinking about you because I was like, "Okay, you get, like, pinged to go on the news, like,
right.
in 30 minutes, and you, like, need to have access to that coming in," and, there's just a lot that I miss. Like, I don't have email on the Wise phone, so
Okay,
people need to know to text me if it's urgent, and that's just an adjustment. It's not impossible. I need to
right.
have my laptop with me all the time because it doesn't have Zoom on the Wise phone, so if there's a Zoom meeting, I need to be able to pull over and, like, but then also I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't have a hotspot on this Wise phone right now. I think I can get one, but I haven't just had the time to figure that out. So I don't. It's just a lot. And you're right that it's like I have a lot going on. So it's been. The founder said at week 2, you're like in the pit of despair, and then you dig your way out by week 4, and you feel really great. But I'm definitely in the pit of despair with it right now.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
I
well,
know.
next time we talk, I can't wait to hear about how you have
I,
ascended from the pit and you're
I know.
free,
Right.
free from the control of the iPhone and living a
Yeah.
more balanced life.
I know. I'll get there. I know, and I was warned about this, but okay. I like So, anything else you want to share today that we didn't cover?
Just that I am so encouraged by what I see happening across the globe, nationwide in the United States, and I am so moved by the dedication that you, Chris McKenna, Rose Bronstein, Jonathan Haidt's team, and so many others,
Mhm.
we are being confident and leaning into common sense. We know what is best for children, and we know that what is happening currently is not.
Yeah,
And we won't
exactly.
rest until it changes. I've
Nope.
said before, in a lot of ways, it's too late for my son. He's 16. I can't go back in time. Sure, there's things we can do moving forward, but his childhood is basically gone. And
Yeah.
that is horrible. And I might start crying if I talk about it too much longer.
Mhm.
But the good news is that for everybody listening who has younger children, you have so much more hope. Your children's childhood is going to be healthier because of
Mhm.
the work that Nicki is doing and our team at Bark Technologies is doing. So,
Mhm.
like, stay strong, stay the course.
Yeah.
We're going to make children have a better childhood.
Yeah. Agree, and take advantage of these products, that and the information that we have now, right? And we don't have to default to all these unsafe devices and decisions just because everyone else is doing it. So, because everyone else doesn't need to be doing it. So get with your community, talk about safer decisions together, have book clubs about anxious generation and parental control and all the good books we have access to now. But I'll include links to the annual report, to your book, which comes out tomorrow, to John's book, and anything else we talked about. So, Titania, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicki. You're awesome.
You're awesome.